Hey guys, it's Matt. Thank God Bill sent over a few posters to help us out. You know my FOOLosopher series? Not philosophers, FOOLosopher. Well, next up was Hegel, famous in the truth community for the Hegelian dialectic with crushed ice, problem, reaction, solution, which we'll find has nothing to do with what Hegel initially or originally said. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The main point to start off with is, this is such incredible, incomprehensible nonsense. I'm not sure how long this part of this video is going to go. If we switch over to fun stuff or laughing at certain parts of the Not Milk, I will put it very early on in this video, the timestamp as to when we switch over. And I'll try to present the important points first. Somehow this Hegelian dialectic was pulled into our truth research community as problem, reaction, solution. What he put forth has nothing to do with that. So we might ponder that a bit. But, you know, I have to do this video because I've been reading about Hegel, been trying to ponder his nonsense, and it's incomprehensible, guys. And I'll prove that to you. Matt, it's just you're too stupid. Well, my high school did say that my IQ was just above Forrest Gump's, but I don't think it's me. I think it truly is incomprehensible and utter nonsense. Not just because I can't understand it. I think nobody can understand it. Look at Hegel, a face only a mother could love. I don't know why I keep saying this, but could you imagine if that came to pick up your daughter for the prom? At his age? No, as a younger version, of course. That would really be sick. Anyway, guys, thank you, Bill. Let's start off with one of Bill's posters here to get us in the mood for the nonsense that's to come. 3 ways to tell if your family or friends may be a Not Milk minion. How did they identify replicants in Blade Runner? Maybe we can use something like that. 1, they love drinking the Hegelian dialectic with crushed ice. Give me another drink, Harry. What you want? Hegelian dialectic with some crushed ice. Okay, and you want a Pabst? Yeah. 2nd, they love loose juice. 3, they voted. George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He's got the 4 names. So we're even more skeptical. Born in 1770, was a German philosopher, FOOLosopher, and one of the most influential figures of German idealism and 19th century philosophy. His influence extends across the entire range of contemporary philosophical topics, from metaphysical issues in epistemology, and ontology, to political philosophy. The philosophy of history, philosophy of art, philosophy of religion, and the history of philosophy. There's no philosophy of art. It's something is created. It's to be enjoyed or not. I mean, talk about these people are put into this Not Milk reality, folks. So a certain type of person believes this is where the real answer lies. I take exception and I have disdain for most of these FOOLosophers with certain exceptions. Most of them are in love with their own intelligence, write things only their own contemporaries can understand. Somehow the Not Milk loves it, brings them up through the ranks to prominence, and propagates their bullshit. And then you have to learn about it in school, and you're sitting there sleeping in school. Bueller, and you're like, this is horse shit. Then we have to actually learn about this shit. Born in 1770 in Stuttgart, Holy Roman Empire. Well, first of all, there's nothing holy about it. Stuttgart was part of the Roman Empire in 1770? That's news to me. I thought it broke up 1,000 years before. Whatever, Matt, you weren't there. He was born during the transitional period between the Enlightenment, and the Romantic movement in the Germanic regions of Europe. Let me tell you what, there was no Enlightenment period. There still ain't. Newsflash, nobody's been enlightened yet. We're trying our best. We're kind of getting close. We're not quite there yet. No, it didn't come during his birth. Sorry. Hegel, and his first name is George, but there's no E on the end for some reason. He just dropped off the E to be different. Hegel lived through and was influenced by the French Revolution. He was in love with Napoleon. Loved that little bastard. I mean, that tells you right there the type of man we're dealing with. Hegel, what type of man were you? He's rolling around his grave, listening to this presentation. His fame rests chiefly upon the phenomenology of spirit. This is phenomenology. This is what he is known for. Not only is the text undecipherable unless you're one of his not-nil contemporaries. Most people, including myself, can't even pronounce the title and the name. The Science of Logic, his theological account of history, and his lectures at the University of Berlin on topics from his Encyclopedia of the Philosophical Sciences. Guys, you think this is kind of confusing, what I'm reading now? This is the dumbed-down Wikipedia version Cliff Notes. I'm not sure we're going to dive into the actual text. It's call me stupid if you want. It's completely impossible to understand unless you're one of his not-nil contemporaries on the same weird frequency. I'm not just saying it. None of it makes any sense. Let's jump right into this Hegelian dialectic, what he's most famous for, and ponder how it made its way into the truth community, but has been changed for the truth community. Let's begin by using a dumbed-down explanation of what George, without the E, Hegel intended in his original thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and then how potentially that got worked in and bastardized into the truth community. Oh, Matt, you're dumbing it down for our benefit. No, I don't understand it myself more than this. The dumbed down version's for me. Beyond what I'm saying here, nobody knows. We'll just leave it at this, but then we have to bridge it. Our thesis, antithesis, synthesis, we'll see how it was built into the truth of the community. How did it get into our neck of the woods? So, thesis. That's like a theory. You put something out. It has problems. It's blurry. What's the opposite? Let's see if there's merits to the opposite of the thesis or the theory being presented. And then can we bridge together the thesis and its antithesis to make a new theory, a whole, or a new truth that exceeded both that came before? Then you can apply the same thing to the new truth. That becomes the thesis. What is its antithesis and what's its synthesis? Matt, what did you just say? I have no idea. So let's do a simple example, see if we can follow along. Part 1, thesis, the theory. In the movie A League of Their Own, Rosie O'Donnell was sexy. That's my thesis or theory. What's the antithesis? In the movie A League of Their Own, a Vietnamese potbelly pig would have been sexier if Madonna was friends with it. That's the antithesis. The synthesis is very hard in this case. Something along the lines of Rosie O'Donnell may have been sexy in A League of Their Own if you just got out of prison after 40 years. Now, that wasn't very good, I know. So I just turned to Google and I asked, what's an example of Hegelian's thesis, antithesis, synthesis? Hey, AI overview came right up. A classic example of thesis, antithesis, synthesis would be this. Thesis, quote, all people should be completely vegetarian. Antithesis, people should be allowed to eat meat freely. Synthesis, while reducing meat consumption is important, a balanced diet incorporating some meat with ethical sourcing is the best approach. AI overview, bot, I wouldn't give a squirt of piss for your ass right now. I am no Hegel expert, but I assure you this horseshit is not what Hegel intended, nor my Rosie O'Donnell example, but this is worse than my example. And just down below, the AI overview provides an explanation for its vegetarian versus meat example. Thesis. This is the initial statement presenting a strong viewpoint on a topic. Again, Rosie O'Donnell was sexy in A League of Their Own. Antithesis. This is the opposing viewpoint, directly contradicting the thesis. So what I said about the Vietnamese potbelly pig, that doesn't really hold. It would be more along the lines of, no, Rosie O'Donnell was not sexy at all in A League of Their Own. She was the leading cause of impotence in North America for men over 40 that saw it. That would be the antithesis. Synthesis. This, according to the AI overview, hey, thanks, is a middle ground that emerges from considering both the thesis and the antithesis, attempting to incorporate the best aspects of each while addressing their potential flaws. So let me get this straight. When men and women are arguing, and each has an opposing viewpoint, if they decide to come together, find middle ground or a compromise, a synthesis, if you will, that's some high-level philosophy class that would be presented in Princeton or something. So this guy's getting all sorts of not-nil accolades, and he's considered one of the greatest minds who ever lived based on something that primitive man has been doing for potentially tens of thousands of years. This is my watering hole. The opposite. No, this is my watering hole. Why don't we share the watering hole? Guys, this is what's being presented to me. I'm not making this up. That's what the AI overview, the first thing was about being a vegetarian versus eating meat. And then this, if you understand this, then you get an A in philosophy at Harvard. Look, Matt, I thought you said this stuff was complicated. Everything else here is. This is very simple, but let me read you a few passages just so you get an idea of this nonsense. Then in a minute or two, go on to why the truth community was given problem, reaction, solution, which is exactly how they do business. It's very accurate. But how did that make its way into the truth research community? And why, when it's unrelated, was it linked to Hegel's synthesis, antithesis? Why were they linked? We've been throwing that around for years, just probably to make us look like fools. That's typically what it does, and it's been very successful. Let me just for a minute read you a bit of what I'm talking about here. I assure you it is mostly complicated gobbledygook. It's the triadic structure, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The triadic structure. If negation is the inner life force of the dialectic, then triadic structure is the organic fractal form. In classical logic, the double negation, A is not non-A, that comes from Aristotle, would simply reinstate the original thesis. The synthesis does not do this. It has overcome and preserved or sublated the stages of the thesis and antithesis to emerge as a higher rational unity. Note, this formulation of Hegel's triadic logic is convenient, but it must be emphasized that he never used the terms thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So Hegel never even used those terms, yet we're saying problem, reaction, solution is from Hegel. What a complete bastardization. Hegel's dialectic triad also serves another logical purpose. Immanuel Kant, had distinguished between two kinds of logic. The analytic logic of understanding, which focuses the data of sense experience to yield knowledge of the natural phenomenal world. 2. The dialectic logic of understanding, which operates independently of sense experience and erroneously professes to give knowledge of the transcendent noumena, things in themselves, or also the infinite or the whole. It goes, guys, I'm not even reading from Hegel himself. This is like the dumbed down Cliff Notes version I can't even understand. So, because most of us are going to forget all that nonsense that we just talked about, here is the summary takeaway, the only thing that needs to be remembered. That the truther's notion of problem, reaction, solution, and attributing that to Hegel's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and somehow them being related is completely wrong and made up. One has absolutely nothing to do with the other. In fact, it says here that Hegel never even used the terms synthesis, antithesis, and thesis, synthesis. He didn't even use those terms. If you asked him, let's wake him up, he's rolling around, wake him up, get him up from the undead. We're using your dialectic as problem, reaction, solution. And you just said, he mouthed it, he can't stop it. He says, just stop it. I never intended that. Even though he says, you mother effers are right. That is how the Not Milk does business. Problem. They create the problem. Of course they do. Almost every one they created. Then they react to it like they're trying to stop the problem that they created. And then there's a solution that destroys more freedoms. That's accurate. I'm not saying it's not accurate. That's exactly how the creeps do business. But it has nothing to do with the Hegelian dialectic with crushed ice. Absolutely nothing. So let's just stop that at least. Although problem, reaction, solution. Just stop saying thesis and synthesis and Hegelian dialectic and all this nonsense. Stop trying to act intelligent. Just say problem, reaction, solution. Primate charming. They created it. If there's wild swings in the you-know-what, they created it or at least pushed it along. Then, we want to fix it. That's the reaction to what they created. And then the solution, of course, is, I'm sorry. You got an odd license plate or even license plate? You can only drive on the even or odd days of the week. And, we need to really save the planet, or you have to get on Elon Musk's shuttle to Mars. So let's stop embarrassing ourselves and rename it. This is much more accurate and easier to remember. Step 1, fabricated problem. Step 2, fake reaction. Step 3, liberty-destroying solution. Now, there's some fine print here. Step 1, fabricated problem. Let's talk about primate charming. Sure, do they want the winds of, say, Helene and Milton? Do they want them stronger? Do they want Harvey stalling out over Houston? Sure. So it's not just a fabricated problem. The general notion of what Al the Boar talks about is fabricated with real elements. It's just because it says fabricated, the fine print is there certainly can be real elements where they're actually trying to create a problem, even though most of it is fabricated. Step 2, fake reaction to the problem. And there's not a lot of fine print here because the reaction is almost always fake. It has to be by definition because most of the problem is fabricated and made up to begin with, but the reaction is always fake. Look at 2020. Oh my gosh, stay safe. And the Karens came out and the lines of cars to get the PCR test. Remember, there's blocks and blocks, people in line. Put your head out the window, boy. I'm going to shove this Q-tip so far up your nose, you'll think you had a lobotomy. When do I get my results? Tomorrow. Now you quarantine and stay safe. That hurt. Yeah, I'm going to shove it up harder next time. That PCR test, the quarantining, and I can't wait to get, the renting of the movie, the action, Jacksonation. Oh, they had it all laid out. The overflow triage centers, they were all empty. And then you had number 2, fake reaction. 1 was fabricated problem. 3, liberty-destroying solution. Yeah, every time. Oh, we're going to have to take something away from you, poor devils, to save the planet. In summary, everything they do is problem, reaction, solution, which we've changed to fabricated problem, fake reaction, liberty-destroying solution. But it has nothing to do with Hegel. And to Hegel, rolling around, we apologize, good sir. Guys, in looking at what is in front of me and all the notes that I made and everything that I underlined, let's stick with this for a while. We don't do the FOOLosopher series more than once every 2 or 3 months. I know this isn't for everybody. My understanding of reality is the half page. Okay, it's 3 pages, but I just can't keep reiterating that. I have to come up with a wide variety of series and topics and things to look at, things to laugh at, ranging everywhere from the proper people breaking into a chateau a few days ago to trying to break down Hegel and how he was influenced by Immanuel Kant and things like that. It's not going to be for everybody, but again, you understand that when it's a half page, how many times can you keep reiterating the best news of all time? I have to keep this interesting. And, a few things every few weeks are not going to appeal to everybody. And I apologize for that. I'm doing my best for a balanced variety of what these presentations look like. So we'll continue with this because we do it so infrequently. And I'll probably never look at Hegel ever again. So, I was going to jump into stupid stuff if we couldn't stomach this sort of FOOLosopher's nonsense crap, like the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight tonight, like stupid stuff like that. Who you think's going to, Matt, are you going to tune in? I have Netflix. I might. That is such an element of stalled century. There's no new and interesting boxers. You have to present some social media misfit jerk-off fighting against some legend from the past who's probably 25 years out of being in shape. This is an element. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson is a gigantic element of stalled century. Now, reading these FOOLosophers all day long, is not my thing. I don't read much anymore, but I've been exposed to this on and off, this stuff for 35 or more years, going back to advanced placement English class in 9th grade. They put me in with the nerds. I was with the one class, AP English. I don't know, I tested well or something. I was like, these are all nerds. Where are my friends? It was Shakespeare, and it was Play-Doh on happiness, and it was Socrates, the Apology, and it was all this horse shit. We didn't get into things like Hegel. That was too high level. That's left for waste of money college classes. But there's repeating themes. The repeating theme came here with Hegel, where they look back to those that they bow down before, the masters that came before, the influencers, in this case, Immanuel Kant. And guess what? Kant actually writes much of his stuff in a way that can actually be understood. And he has writings that are actually interesting. Kant is an exception. Not that I'm going to go read too much of him over the course of the rest of my life, but I will give him a break. It is not all nonsense. There's a lot of Plato that's not all nonsense. So what Hegel does is he bows down before the gods that came before, like Kant, probably had posters up on the ceiling, and then they try to expand. Their job is to better what the masters of the past did and have carrying it forward with more nonsense recognized by the authorities or powers that be that run the universities. There's always these gatekeepers in every era, and this is not Nilk, who decide what's going to be given to the populace and the great unwashed, who will decide who will become great and famous men, who will get their tenured at Cambridge and Oxford. And it's interesting, if you look at Hegel's first 20 years, he struggled. He did not even have a permanent current position. He was almost accepting payment directly from students. I mean, he's not of any bloodline. He came completely from the outside. But at some point, he wrote something. I believe that's what I talked about earlier. We're not going to dive back into it, where the Not-Nilk paid a lot of attention to it. And whatever the Not-Nilk's use of it was, he got the attention of these gatekeepers, the old families, the old money, the bloodlines, who then now he's invited to the Eyes Wide Shut party, where before he was an outcast. And to this day, the Not-Nilk is still very much in love with pushing Hegel as one of the great minds of philosophy, which if you read just one page, you see that this is really hard to comprehend. He did something for the Not-Nilk, something that was very special to its sick and creepy ways. There are several pages dedicated to Hegel's infatuation with, again, the man that came before. The great man that came before was Immanuel Kant. Then Hegel will try to better his work and expand upon it. But this came from Kant, and this got my attention. Maybe I should take back everything nice I said about Kant. He's rolling around. He says, as a result of my systematic clearing away of all previous metaphysical confusions, truth is now a goal which might well be attained before the end of the 18th century. That's 1799 to you and me. Truth? He doesn't even define it. What, truth in general may be attained by 1799? Well, Kant, it's 2024. People don't even know what's in the tap water. They don't even know what they're drinking. I mean, what do you mean truth maybe? What does that even mean? But then he contradicts himself. Over here, Kant says, we comprehend the universe only as filtered through the categories which are a constitutive element of our subjectivity. Kant believed that he had demonstrated that we can only know the world as it appears to us and as it is experienced by us, not as it really is in and of itself. Kant had not only provided a foundation for knowledge, he had at the same time also set limits to it. Well, I agree. We've talked about it in a more dumbed-down way, that the senses only take in 1%. 99% of the information available by whatever we call this universe is not available to us. We can't see the ultraviolet. We can't see infrared. We can't hear the dog whistle, etc. And that probably extends to touch. It probably extends to taste. It would extend to all the senses, of course. It's ignorant to think that there's certain things you can't see, but you can touch everything. No, there's probably things also we can't touch. How many people have ever thought about that? So he, in a dumbed-down way, we agree. We only take in 1%. And there's bias even on top of that. We're biased by the information that comes in based on all that we've been taught or brainwashed into since birth. But okay, Kant, you were talking about that in the early 1700s, and that's pretty impressive. That's why I'll give an exception to Kant. But don't say truth in general may be achieved by 1799. You just said truth can never be fully achieved because we only take in a small amount of the information and it's biased. So what are you even talking about? Okay, here's the word that describes Hegel's great work. How am I supposed to understand it if I can't even pronounce it? Phenomenology. Never heard of the word. The phenomenology of spirit is without a doubt one of the strangest books ever written. I can't imagine why. Almost all of what Hegel was to develop systematically over the rest of his life is prefigured in these pages. The book speaks throughout of reason and claims to be tracing a set of logical deductions, but bears all the signs of having been written under inspiration. It is my own beginner's guide to the science of absolute knowledge. Here, all these guys think they all have it figured out. Can't. We'll know everything by 1799. We're close to absolute knowledge. What was Stephen Hawking trying to do with his little idiotic theorem, the theory or the equation for all things? Or just stop it. You know what the real truth is? That we're here to experience a very low place, that we're not meant to know anything important for the most part. We're not meant to know who we really are, where we came from. Things here are not meant to be figured out. That's likely the reason we came. All we have to do is apply the rule of opposites. All of them trying to figure it out. Absolute truth, absolute knowledge. Now, the Knot-Milk pushes these people, of course, or they wouldn't appear in no Princeton or Columbia or Brown textbook. You go to Dartmouth, you say, shit, the next semester's on Hegel. I'm going to just smoke pot. The Knot-Milk, through its university system, loves all these people. So apply the rule of opposites. The real truth is the opposite of, they're looking for absolute truths, thinking things can be figured out with equations and logical reasoning. Guess what? That means things can never be figured out. And that's the experience we're supposed to have here. To let it go, to forget, to not know. Just apply the rule of opposites. Hegel describes phenomenology as a kind of ladder by means of which we can climb from our immediate limited experience of the world up to a truly philosophic vantage point. Once we have attained such a properly philosophical point of view, this ladder can be dropped and discarded. Aha! I'm starting to understand his bullshit. No, not really. Hegel insists that the beginning of philosophy presupposes the point of view reached only at the end of the phenomenology. But this latter takes a very peculiar form. In fact, as Hegel himself notes, it is circular. Indeed, in this and latter books, Hegel refers to circles within circles. Aha! Hegel, you should be ashamed of yourself, wasting everybody's time. Back to this part. Hegel describes it as a kind of ladder by means of which we can climb from our immediate, limited experience of this world. No, we come in here to have a very limited experience. It's new for us. That's why we incarnated here. The low here is to be embraced. Maybe not going too far. Maybe don't suck up the smells in the elevator like you enjoy them, but everything else, embrace the low. Don't always try to overcome it. Do what you need to do here for the whole of you, then announce, then get out. We've done enough. We've experienced the low. It's not to completely be overcome. It can't be overcome in this limited form, you philosophical jackasses. Hegel's master and slave thought exercise is somewhat interesting. I'll see if we can make heads or tails of it. Hegel outlines a mythical encounter between two primeval self-consciousnesses. This is the famous example of the master and the slave. I guess it's not two people here that meet up, it's two aspects of consciousness in one's own mind. Each self deeply absorbed in the business of living. One first confronts the other as an obstruction to its own possession of the world and demands recognition from the other. It's big on recognition. One has to gain recognition. I don't really understand it yet. The result is a life and death struggle for recognition by the other. The master versus the slave. The self who submits rather than face death becomes the slave. There is no way for the master on his own to escape from his own form of dependency and alienation. In quaking respect for the master, the slave is shaken out of narrow self-identification and self-interest. The slave is put to work and slowly learns self-respect and comes to see himself reflected in the work of his hands. The master says, I recognize that the world about me is the world I've made. It is my world, although we are both possessed by the master. Paradoxically, the master remains in the state of dependence, while the slave slowly educates himself towards independence. It is no wonder that Hegel's myth of the master and the slave in this example continues to have such resonance to the present. Marxists, existentialists, the intellectual architects of the negritude and the black consciousness movement have have all been drawn to the somber richness of Hegel's tale of the master and the slave. What the hell? I don't understand none of it. So I'm going to do a Humpty Dumpty on this stupid shit. What Humpty Dumpty said to Alice in Alice in Wonderland. He said, the words mean what I say they mean. This stupid horseshit means what I say it means. Okay, the master and the slave, two parts of the same consciousness. Well, the master, of course, per as this world defines it, is the things of this world, the things rooted to this world. The ego, the frontal lobes that think in English, everything that's been brainwashed since birth. The other aspects of us have, in a sense or in a way, been a slave to that 12 years? No, as old as you are, has been a slave to that master part of the consciousness, of course. And it says here, through its own works, the slave rises up and overcomes the aspects of us through, is this worry about yourself? Is this part to the work? Parts of us that have been subservient or we've been told don't exist do rise up and I guess eventually take control. Is this what Hegel means? I have no idea because I don't understand the horseshit that he's presenting, but I'm going to do a Humpty Dumpty. It means what I say it means. Back to this part. Paradoxically, the master remains in the state of dependence, while the slave slowly educates himself towards independence. Forget two parts of the same consciousness. There's his not milk, its minions, like Jared and Alec Baldwin, and then spiritual beings like us. The master remains in the state of dependence. Tony said they're game addicted. They're not ready to take the next leap. This is a parallel between not milk minions and people like us. Again, this is a reality of opposites. So here on earth, what appears to be the master is most certainly in the state of the greatest dependence, right? Your friends and family look up to people like Melvin and Elon Musk. Ew, I thought Frank was kind of cute. Ew, they look up to these people. They seem to be the master's rule of opposites. And per what Hegel said here, that means they're in the greatest state of dependence. It's just the way this reality works. Everything's opposite. I'm not making this up. What does your inner knowing tell you? What does your heart tell you, Jerry Maguire? Do you need them? No. Do you need Melvin and Santa Claus? Do you need all those minions running around? Of course not. We don't need not one bit of it. Hopefully there'll never even be another image of them presented before us if we ever get the not milk-free zone negotiated. Do they need us? What does your inner knowing say about that? What does they or what they represent, the screen and the not milk, do they need us? Probably even for reality creation. Yeah, it's one-sided and they're masterful. They think, and they've got all these dummies to believe that they're the ones that are needed, when in fact it's just the opposite. The real spiritual beings, how many of us there are, we don't know, could be a small group. We're the ones that are most needed by them in this reality. Doesn't matter how low or our social standing, if some of us make minimum wage or we didn't get the key to the city, we just waiter and waitress down the street. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. They need us. That's why this truth community comes forth and says, oh, we're going to wipe us out. That's genocide. Oh, really? Yeah, see, we're needed for this entire reality. Whether we're treated as livestock or cattle, we're absolutely needed. They likely don't exist without us, but we're all going to get wiped out. If they wanted to wipe us out, it could have happened 300, 400, 500 years ago or something. We're needed for the reality, even at the metaphysical level. It's the analogy or the metaphor of the movie The Matrix itself. Those in pods were needed by the architect, by the oracle, by the machine city, by whatever level of consciousness existed inside the Matrix. In this example, those in the pods are like real spiritual beings. I know the architect came forth and said, well, there are levels of survival that we're prepared to, or whatever, assuming they lose all the harvest of those in pods. But the original fandom of the movie The Matrix was not those in pods provided electricity. That doesn't even make any sense in the context of The Matrix. The original fandom was those in the pods, through imagination, real spiritual beings, through the mind, became like the processing unit or the CPU or the GPU for the Matrix itself. Everybody in the pods was wired together. The processing power of the human mind drove and powered the Matrix. Now, that never made it into the movie. It's the original fandom, but that's the truth of the analogy it's presenting. Where, well, we have to get people in the popcorn crunchers to understand, so we're going to change that and just make it that we're harvesting them for energy. That's how we have to dumb it down to that. Oh, but the original fandom, the original intention still exists. That doesn't even make any sense, because it says in the Matrix that with a source of fusion or fission is all the energy the machines would ever need. Well, if you have sources of fusion, I think they said, you don't need human beings in a pod where you just get the heat, get the BTUs. Obviously, it's the creative power. That's what's being presented, the metaphor of the Matrix itself. You need those real spiritual beings, or nothing exists. I think that's what's being said. So in the Matrix, if it's an analogy, you believe the original fandom that those in pods powered the Matrix, like some dumbass website at the bottom will say powered by STR, powered by some dumbass company that programmed it. Soon it'll all say powered by the Chat GPT. Do we power this reality? Aha! Yeah, we get a sense. What does your inner knowing tell you? Do real spiritual beings power this reality? What does your inner knowing tell you? Yeah, in a way, in ways we don't understand. Of course, all is mind. Not all is Big Bang. All is mind. So back to the first grade truthers. Oh, they're going to wipe us out. Genocide. Oh, let me get this straight. They're going to wipe out those responsible to create reality so their own existence will be snuffed out. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, first grade. Go back to your spitballs. Sit down and go back to your spitballs. Just don't aim them this way. So, in summary, we find Hegel to be nothing more than philosophical nonsense, as they all are. And the Not Milk in some way uses this philosophical nonsense kind of like a graduated Animal Farm to get people that are very intelligent and believe that this is how you expand the mind and there's more here. And I'm tired of CNN. I want something more. So Matt, when he thought he was intelligent, when he lived out in San Francisco in 1999, he turned to The Economist magazine. I thought I was getting the real truth. I thought I was superior to the dummy across the cube that was reading the USA Today, because I was at that graduated. That's all this is, these FOOLosopher's. It's another level of the trick. Is anybody surprised that I'm saying the same thing over and over again? It's just another level to get you stuck on. If you can spend time figuring out Kant and everything that was said by these FOOLosophers, Hegel all the way back through Aristotle, and if you can figure that out, oh, they know something, and you just put the time in, you know what it is? It's more waste of time nonsense. Throw it all out. Go outside and do what your spiritual whole needs you to do. Go do part 2 of the work, the worry about yourself activities. I bet these philosophers and Hegel never said, what about yourself? No, he wouldn't understand that. Thanks for listening.